Okay, so here we are with number 77. So when a president leaves office, should every officer, every secretary, every ambassador, every judge, should they all just be like swept out with the outgoing president? And so should that entire administration collapse every 4 years? Now, Hamilton's going to answer here in 77 with an emphatic no. If the republic's going to survive, the executive branch has to endure beyond the individual who temporarily leads the executive branch. So, the shared appointment power between the president and the Senate creates that kind of stability. I'm Matt Haskell. I'm a high school history and civics teacher, and we're going through all the Federalist Papers together up to number 85, and we're up to 77 here. So let's go ahead and set the stage here for 77. So this particular essay continues Hamilton's argument from number 76, where he's already defended presidential nomination and then senatorial confirmation. And now he's going to go ahead and turn to how this structure functions over time. Because Hamilton, in his argument, is worried about sudden purges and instability, corrupt bargains, manipulation of appointments, and then just a breaking down or a fragmentation of the executive branch. And his goal is to show the public that the Constitution can preserve continuity even when the executive administration changes. And his central claim, his core argument, is that sharing the appointment power between the president and the Senate creates stability, it prevents corruption, and it guarantees that the executive branch doesn't rise or fall with every election. And so this is supposed to protect national security, the public trust, administrative consistency, foreign relations, and then this long-term implementation of the executive policies. So for Hamilton, this isn't really a small detail. It's essential to small r Republican government. So Hamilton will say something that's rather upfront, kind of frank, right? If the president controlled all appointments alone, he could build a private government of loyalists. We may be seeing some of that. But anyway, the president might, just appoint his cronies, his best friends, might dismiss officials who disagree with him, pack offices with partisans, political partisans, dominate policy through the patronage system, reward political allies, punish dissenters or people that have a different voice than the president. But because the Senate must confirm every appointment, a president cannot create a personal army of officers. The Senate serves as kind of a constitutional firewall. So Hamilton writes about leadership change. So like if a new president could fire every official, replace every officer, sweep out the entire agencies that are part of the executive branch, the government would collapse into just chaos every time that we have an administration shift due to election. Now, instead, the Senate-approved officers continue in their roles. They maintain continuity. They preserve institutional memory. And they serve the nation, not the president. So this puts stability above political turnover. Now, he goes on to make a pretty insightful point, and that is because the Senate represents all the states, its participation in appointments protects against presidential favoritism. So a president must nominate people who can earn broad support across the Senate, not just those who benefit him personally. This spreads responsibility, and it's supposed to dilute corruption. And the Senate's visibility then also deters backroom deals. Now, why the Senate's role then encourages better presidents? So, like knowing that you have the Senate working in the process. Well, Hamilton argues that the very existence of senatorial scrutiny discourages presidents from trying to game or cheat the system, because they would know that bad nominees would be rejected, that unfit appointments damage the president's credibility, that public debate would expose favoritism, and that the Senate can block excessive influence. This keeps the president focused more on merit, not necessarily manipulation. And so the Senate's presence nudges presidents towards better behavior. I wish that was always the case. Now, Hamilton does go on to warn of a risk that takes place in any political system, and that is executives making corrupt deals to gain or to keep office. Now, a president with total appointment power might promise offices in exchange for political support. But the Senate, the need for Senate confirmation, breaks that chain of corruption. No one can be guaranteed a petition before the Senate gets the chance to weigh in. Hamilton explains that this reduces things like bribery and favoritism, election manipulation, and then just political job trading. This process it becomes harder to corrupt because it requires agreement from the two bodies, from the Senate and the executive branch. Now, Hamilton does flip the script a little bit in the essay, where he does go on to say, just as unchecked presidential control is dangerous, so is unchecked legislative control, or influence, I should say, influence, not control. If the Senate controlled appointments entirely, then the president becomes very dependent, kind of weak, easily manipulated, and then just basically overshadowed by the Congress. But because the president initiates appointments, he maintains independence. And that balance depends, let me say that. The branches balance each other because of that. Now, if we tighten down Hamilton's logic here, his 5 reasons why. One is that shared appointments prevent presidents from being just a loyalist machine. 2, that officers confirmed by the Senate provide continuity across administrations. 3, public visible confirmation limits corruption. 4, Senate participation blocks election time, like job trading. And then 5, the president does retain independence because he initiates the process. There's your 5 easy steps. Now, his tone in this particular essay is, he writes this essay as a designer thinking several steps ahead, because he wants the system to endure, beyond political personalities, or beyond factions, or temporary passions, beyond election results. He wants the government to be stable, even though politics often are not. So this is Hamilton trying to be more of an engineer that's building durability into the Constitution. Number 77 resonates directly today with what happens with modern transitions between the presidency, or what we see with Senate confirmation hearings, or debates about deep state continuity, or discussions about executive influence, protection against political purges, or the design of independent agencies in the executive branch, or outside the branches that work with the government. So Hamilton's logic remains rather foundational. It's the executive must be stable even when the political world can have turbulence within it. So our takeaways today would be that shared appointment power does stabilize the executive branch. Senate participation prevents corruption and manipulation. Continuity of government does protect the republic during transitions. Now, number 77 is Hamilton's argument for an executive branch that outlasts any single president. He wanted a system that was strong enough to preserve continuity, balanced enough to restrain ambition, and stable enough to prevent chaos every 4 years. The president nominates, the Senate consents, and together they create an executive that serves the nation, not any one individual. So I hope this episode helped you understand, or maybe even clarify, the purpose of the shared appointment power. It's kind of 76 bridges into 77 here. And I'll throw out the other one here, number 78 here real quick. I was supposed to do this one last night, and I did it today. But number 78, this is where Hamilton's come back, and it's his most famous essay on the judicial branch. So thanks for watching.